when I think about what it means to be a teacher, one of the first things that came to my mind was what Ken Robinson was saying in his TED Talk. And he was talking about how the public education system was created to meet the demands of the industrialism. And as I think about the public education system now, I think the purpose has shifted so much because we are no longer needing to supply people for industrial purposes. And so that kind of tied into the article, What is the Purpose of Public Education? And the author Heather had talked about, she was sitting down with another educator. They're both educators, and they were talking about what does it mean to teach? And they both had very different answers. And while both of what they were saying was true, they realized, oh, we are not attacking this from the same perspective. And so I think part of being a teacher is figuring out what is the purpose that you are getting into teaching for. And that will look different for different people. And I think that's part of the beauty of education, is that as a student, as you walk through, you're getting each different teacher that you get has a different purpose, and they are going to embed that in you, and so you're going to become more well-rounded as you finish out your time as a student. So if I were to answer the question that Heather posed in her article, what is the purpose of public education, I would think there's kind of three things that come to mind. Number one, tangibly, students should walk out with reading, writing, and mathematics skills. They should be proficient in that. Number two, cultivating critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills is going to serve students throughout their whole life. And then lastly, developing interpersonal communication skills. I think that will serve them in every facet of their life. Friendships, with their families, in their marriages, everywhere. One of the most interesting things that I found in the reading for this class was in that chapter From Speculation to Science, talking about how students learn and the reality that learning comes best or is most efficient when you're building on pre-existing knowledge. So the author uses the example of if kids have the pre-existing notion that the earth is flat, if you are talking to them and you say, no, the earth is round, they're going to build on that pre-existing idea that the earth is flat, and they just picture the earth being a pancake as opposed to it being a sphere. So you actually have to acknowledge that the earth is a sphere and round and kind of explain how that works. And something I found that was, something I noticed in myself, as I've been taking this class, I have become kind of a critic of my professors, and just kind of seeing how they integrate these kinds of things into their classroom. And I was taking a theology class, and I noticed that there was a big disconnect. My professor wasn't very good at engaging what our pre-existing knowledge was with the topic before he started explaining something else. And I happen to have a lot of pre-existing knowledge with the topic because my dad's a pastor, and I've thought a lot about the stuff that the class was on. But I noticed that other students in the class, all of this was brand new to them. And because there was nothing to latch onto with their pre-existing knowledge, they were just completely lost. And they're like, I have no idea what he's even trying to teach us right now. And so I was just thinking, oh man, if we just tweaked one thing to see where everybody is and how we can start to build on what they already know, maybe a lot more learning could have been done, or growth of knowledge. I believe it is in the business of everyone interested in education to insist upon the school as the primary and most effective interest of social progress. So when Dewey is talking about social progress, I just think teachers have such an opportunity to shape our culture because of the amount of time they spend with kids throughout the day. Like, how much of a percentage of a kid's life is in a classroom? They're awake for what? 10, 12, 15 hours of the day, and 8 of those are in school with the teacher. And so the chance to build their character and develop them as a whole person, there's so much time to do that. And then also, William James talked about this in his article, but teachers have a unique opportunity to partner alongside parents as they are learning how to cultivate good habits in their kids. So, and James really talks about how it's important for parents to realize that as their kids get older, how they support their kids when it comes to things like time management and actually helping them with their assignments needs to look different as they get older. So what you do with a kindergartner is going to be very different from what you're doing with a senior in high school as far as structuring their time and all of that. And so just the opportunity that teachers have throughout the day at school to invest in kids, but then also how they can influence and help parents to further that investment and help develop those kids' skills. And so there's a unique opportunity not just for knowledge development or giving them more knowledge development, but to engage their whole person and develop their character, which is what is most compelling to me about teaching, because I think that is where my mission as a Christ follower, when Jesus calls us to love and to serve, a classroom creates such a perfect environment or a tangible way to live that out. And so I look forward to the opportunity to not only love and serve students, but to cultivate a culture or a classroom where they learn to love and serve other people. And I think although I will have such a small little pocket and corner of the earth, I can make that little corner look a little bit more like heaven. And hopefully that over time would start to ripple out, and as the kids grow up, their homes would look a little bit more like heaven than they might have had they not been in my classroom. And so I just think that opportunity to engage the whole person and develop their character, and to kind of live out my values of selflessness, that hopefully that would start to rub off on them, and that ultimately it would help the earth look a little more like heaven in the long run. So this kind of connects directly to what Dewey says at the end of his chapter, when he says, "I believe that in this way the teacher always is the prophet of the true God and the usher in of the true kingdom of God." So just that reality that each day in and day out you're able to create a little pocket or corner of the earth that looks a little bit more like heaven. That is what is most compelling to me about becoming a teacher. Okay, Lisa Delpit talks about how there's issues of power in the classroom, whether that be things like students that have social cachet or teachers having authority over students. Anyway, she kind of elaborates on that. And as I was thinking about it, I was thinking of how true that is, because as human beings, we're flawed. And our tendency is, when we have power, we want to retain that power and we want to keep others from taking that from us. We never want to be at the bottom. And when that happens, usually the result are things like selfishness, scarcity, insecurity, and I think that that's not what we want for our world. But I believe that an antidote to this would be selflessness. And I think, as I talked about before, with having so much time in the classroom, my classroom, I would be able to create an environment where selflessness is valued and lived out. And in that, students would start to, or I found in my own life that I actually am much happier when I think about myself less and put others' needs ahead of my own. And so I think I'm excited about the opportunity to create a classroom where selflessness is valued, and maybe students would start to learn and to live that way.